Hello everyone, I'm Jack Trelisa, Managing Editor of LP Magazine and your moderator today. Welcome to today's webinar, New Normal, New Tools, How to Combat Loss Better with Prescription Analytics. I first want to thank Zebra Analytics for partnering with us to make this webinar possible. Today's presentation will focus on how Lowe's Foods leveraged prescription analytics to drive insights that provided them a deeper understanding of what was really happening in their stores during the pandemic. The analysis was truly enlightening for both the asset protection and operations teams. I think you'll be very impressed with the results they found. Before we begin, there are a couple of reminders. This webinar is being recorded so you and others in your organization can watch it on demand. All LPM webinars are available on the webinar page of the magazine website, losspreventionmedia.com. The audio will also be available as a podcast that you can access through your favorite podcast platform or on our podcast page on the website. If you have any questions about this webinar, please email us at webinar@lpportal.com. Everyone on this podcast will be muted. However, we encourage you to ask questions. To do so, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many questions as possible after the presentation. Now, to begin our webinar, I will turn over the mic to Adam Haight, Director of Sales at Zebra Analytics, who will introduce our featured speaker. Go ahead, Adam.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you to those who've been able to join us. For those who aren't familiar with Zebra Prescriptive Analytics, it's actually formerly known as Profitect. Profitect was acquired just over a year ago by Zebra Technologies. Zebra had been a long-term investor in Profitect as a startup and wanted to start to align some of the assets that they had in their portfolio suite with a powerful analytics solution. And today I'm joined by Terry Stanley. I'll introduce Terry in a little bit. But Terry, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. So for those who are not familiar with Zebra, Zebra actually is most likely in some form of your organization, specifically in retail. Zebra has a wide range of solutions that they bring to bear on the market, and they're used in a variety of different manners. But what is safe to say when you look at Zebra is that we lead the industry in a wide variety of these technologies, from mobile computing to printing to scanning, as well as retail analytics. The prescriptive analytics team is now part of what is called the Intelligent Edge, which is leveraging solution to execute and align the plan with the outcome. So for what I'm planning for, how do I enable my folks to properly execute that strategy? And sometimes that plan changes. And so today we'll be talking about how we're using data as a way to start to adapt. As Jack mentioned at the beginning of this, we're looking for new tools and new solutions. So what is the impact of a black swan event on data? At this point, we all know COVID-19 has made a major change. And the biggest thing is that the data has changed, but the expectations have not. As Terry will discuss in his presentation, his team is being held to the same standards that he was prior, but everything has changed that he's in the overall organization. The challenge with this black swan event is that it's made planning for the future difficult. And the future is always wrong, as we know, but the plan has changed. We had a plan, we had an event, now things are different. But again, what has not changed is the need to execute. Terry, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So the question becomes, what is business as usual? We're still accumulating data. A lot of organizations are still operating. They just operate differently. What you're looking at here in the slide is an aggregation of data from our client base, looking at transactions over time, and then how that changed effectively early March in the C19 event. And what you saw is that while visits have gone down, the average order values have gone up, the units per transactions have gone up, and a lot of it we understand because people, when they come to shop now, they're very goal-oriented. They're very focused on getting in and getting out, trying to minimize trips. But at the same time, we still have to be able to deliver quality service. We still have to be able to have product available. We still need to make sure that the products that we're selling, we're getting full value for. So while things have changed, we still have to operate in the way that we're expected as loss prevention professionals, asset protection professionals, and folks in operations. Terry, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. For those who don't know Terry, he's a very humble and earnest man. It's an honor to have him as a customer. If you've never met him or had the privilege of hearing him present, I think you're in for an excellent time today. Just a little quick background on what Terry's role at Lowe's Foods. He is the Director of Operations, and his responsibilities do include operations as well as asset protection, workforce management, and store safety. For those who are not familiar with Lowe's Foods is based out of North Carolina. They have 81 full-service stores. They also have a presence in South Carolina and Virginia. And as Terry alluded prior to everyone joining us today, it's been a very beneficial for him. This picture that we see is pre-COVID, and at some point I look forward to getting a picture of him post-COVID. But Terry's been in the industry for a long time, north of 42 years. Most likely, if you're a part of Front Door, Back Door, you probably heard him present there. If you're in the grocery circle, obviously, you're probably familiar with him. But his specialty is operational excellence, shrink reduction, as well as guest and host satisfaction. Welcome, Terry, and thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from you.
Adam, thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here and to share some of the information that I have today, and look forward to the time we have to spend together. Understanding that there's a lot of different types of retailers on here. Talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But I've just included a picture of the outside of one of our stores. We are a full-service supermarket. We really try to look at all of the service areas that we can to offer our guests. So a lot of service departments, food court type atmosphere in many of our stores. We did recently just add an additional 50 IGAs through the purchase of W. Lee Flowers in South Carolina. To talk just a minute about my actual area of responsibility as it relates to the operations team that I lead. I have 26 direct reports, and about 17 of those are in asset protection. And as Adam alluded to, I also cover different areas of operations, labor, workforce management. So kind of a very unique double hat, if you will. Most operations teams are separated from asset protection and work very individual of each other, except when needed. Different for us in that we take a very operational approach to asset protection, and that allows me the unique opportunity to wear really multiple hats. I'd just like everyone to know that we are in year 4 of our partnership with Zebra Analytics. We're headed into year 4. It's been a very successful partnership under originally the Profitect brand, and it's been very instrumental in helping us improve our business. So we continually lean on this tool to really help us gain knowledge of how we can better serve the guest and do it more profitably. Again, for those of you that had an opportunity to meet and hear me speak at the PAC conference, I'm going to again today focus on how we drive asset protection KPIs through operational excellence on our front ends. And then really focus today on the data that we've learned during the pandemic. So as we came through the pandemic, what I know about most retailers is the pandemic either closed you and you were unable to open, and that is certainly a challenge of its own, or you were deemed essential, such as supermarkets, and you were able to remain open, which we were. What happened immediately in the food industry was restaurants were closed. About 50% of the food business in the United States that was going to the food channel through restaurants became mute, if you will, and all of that business was driven into the supermarket channel. We experienced an explosion of business, and it was stores closing one evening and opening up the next day, with business more than doubling, sometimes much more. I'll talk a lot about e-commerce, that business. If you're in it, you certainly understand. If you're not, we had stores that e-commerce business was going up tenfold, well over 1,000% overnight, which really taxed our business and put a lot of pressure on our operations. The other area of self-checkout and some of those things that I'll focus on, and then the amount of people, and just to give you a little bit of insight up front, our organization has hired about 3,500 new hosts over the last 12 weeks. So as I began to dissect all of these changes, it really became important, as Adam alluded to, how are we going to do business going forward? What has changed? Everything seemed to be changing, but what could we learn in the analytics? So I have two people who really drive our Zebra analytics at Lowe's Foods. I have a manager of analytics, Tony, and an analyst, Carrie, that are just super at what they do. So I met with Tony and said, we've got data now. At about 8 to 9 weeks, we realized we have enough data to begin to understand what has changed in our business. And what I'd like to do today is share with you what changed within those KPIs at Lowe's Foods. It may be helpful to those of you in the supermarket business to look at your business and how you're training and going to business today as we try to unwind from this pandemic. For those of you that have been closed or may not be in the food industry, maybe it will at least trigger some areas of your business from a training perspective, your front ends, your cashiers, and really make you challenge whether or not you're getting all the right things done there from a training perspective and all. We certainly, as you will see, have a lot of challenges. This has created a lot of work for us to make ourselves better. So the first slide that I'll share with you is we really wanted to understand by actual POS type what, if anything, changed. And there's not a lot of eye-opening slides in these first few, but what I will tell you is we did not see a 480% lift in coffee sales. We saw a 480% lift in sales going through the coffee shop register. Many of our stores, the business went up so much, so fast that we were diverting guests out of normal check lanes into other parts of the business to try to get the guests checked out and get them out of the store and help them get home. Our sandwich shop up 300%. The pay station at our self-checkout really went up. You'll hear me refer to Lowe's Foods to Go. That's the LFTG. That's our e-commerce business, so we call it Lowe's Foods to Go. And then you'll see areas where the register went down. We had to shut down our buy the serve drinks in our wine and beer department in our beer den. So obviously those registers, we saw a decrease there. But it was interesting to see what type of sales we were generating through all of the different registers in our stores. And that was really sort of the starting point. We then focused in on some of those KPIs that all of us probably on the call are very familiar with, voids and refunds and the like. We did see an increase in dollars in voids, but a decrease in percent. We were able to take this change off the table because we had a new store open several weeks ago, and we did a lot of training, about 150 new hosts, and that we were able to pinpoint those spikes in voids to that new store and that training. So we felt like this was an area that we could say we did not see any substantial changes during the pandemic. The same would go for a transaction to be voided off at the check stand. We saw these as a very even with the amount of business we were doing. But if you will notice on the last bullet point, we saw almost a 600% increase at our Lowe's to Go in e-commerce, and then a large increase at self-checkout. So again, this was the first flag that we saw that said there may be some changes happening in these two areas. Refunds, again, we did see a spike of about 8% in dollars, a decline in percent with the sales increase. We didn't see that as being out of line. And then there is an increase in the last few weeks, and we were able, again, through using the analytics, to go back in and dive deeper and go, why did this spike happen? And we learned that we got so backed up in our Lowe's to Go business at one point that guests were calling in and actually saying, I think I'll just come buy my groceries rather than waiting on the e-commerce order. Can you just void off that order? So again, we saw a spike at the end of this 11-week era, but we were able to go back through the analytics and actually determine what created the spike. Sort of took refunds off the table for us, if you will. Another item that we monitor very heavily is hand-keyed store coupons for rain checks and a variety of other different reasons. This KPI is an AP guy's worst nightmare. It's the opportunity for a host with a management override to go in and reduce the price of an item or key in a coupon. Again, you will see that dollars went down substantially, 40%, down substantially. Again, what happened was as the pandemic sales began to really explode, like many retailers, we stopped offering refunds or returns. And we did this because of people hoarding paper and toilet paper and certain things. So again, our analytics actually pointed to exactly what we thought should be happening and showed us that we believe that there were no anomalies in here around store coupons that we needed to be concerned about. Non-retrieve suspends is also an area where we can suspend an order if a guest forgets their wallet, needs to run home and get a wallet. If a computer shuts down by accident, we can go in and retrieve this order and take care of it. Again, we saw this activity actually decrease in the number and in the percent. Again, these are all KPIs that we monitor and track all along. But then we begin to find out the ugly truth about our business and the things that were changing that have created a lot of opportunities within our organization to improve. We found that in Lowe's to Go, in our e-commerce business, that again, as I'd mentioned, refunds went up 13 times normal, from about a $35 hit per week per location to almost $500. And we began to really dial in on the different activities, and what we found was quite disturbing. And if you look at the Profitect receipt, you will notice the last item is a grocery hand-keyed item for $30. And this young man actually, the guest complained because they weren't able to get their full order. Again, we had supply issues, as have many, with out of stocks because of the pandemic. You know, a guest may come in and on their e-commerce order, they ordered paper, toilet paper, or hand sanitizer, and we didn't have it. The guest complained. This cashier took it upon themselves to agree to give the guest $30 off their order, which is the first issue that hit. So he literally reduced their grocery order by $30. The young lady then comes around. She's the guest service leader. She social distance and she scans her scan badge and approves it without ever asking why. Again, a lot of training opportunities here. Why would a host just make that $30 decision with a guest without referring to management, getting management involved, and making sure that we were doing the right thing? This was the type of activities we began to surface. Again, that's been very it's been very eye-opening through the data, but also disappointing in a way because of the changes in the business. The next area that we found that was a real opportunity for us was in the sale of alcoholic beverages in all of the states that we do business in. You cannot sell alcohol before 7 in the morning, and you cannot sell it after close at night. Our e-commerce business went up so much that we were shopping during third shift and really early mornings. The register is designed to kick out alcohol. It will not ring the alcohol up. And what was happening was our Lowe's to Go hosts were settling these orders in the middle of the night and then allowing the guests to pick it up the next day without charging properly the beer or wine. And we experienced thousands of dollars of loss, not because anyone intended. None of this is fraud. All of this are mistakes, it's misunderstandings, it's things that we had to clarify very quickly. And to this day, we are still finding opportunities, particularly on Sunday mornings. So if you have an e-commerce business that's doing shopping outside of legal times to purchase alcohol, this could be a serious issue for your business. We've now addressed this. We've used actually Zebra Analytics. We've used our Profit Tech to write some opportunities to now flag this so that we can quickly address it. The other area that is always a part of our e-commerce business is substitutions. Substitutions pre-COVID was about 35,000 for our stores and e-commerce. And what happens is the guest orders a 32-ounce spaghetti sauce. That particular item is out of stock. So they offer them a like item that may not be on sale, a different flavor, a different size. And we track this data through our data analytics. And we know that it was about 35,000 in that 11 weeks. This is a cost of doing business. We make these decisions knowingly to take care of that guest and make that guest happy. We saw that number go down during the pandemic 11-week time frame to about 20,000 because we weren't doing substitutions. And yet we still experienced about $20,000 worth of reductions in price. And you have to go back and ask how much of that was what I showed in an earlier slide when a young man or a young lady is just making a decision to help a guest and basically reduce the amount of the order. You also see items, or we saw items like the eggs that you see, where it came up not on file because it was a food service type item that we were offering. And rather than the host taking care of the guest and finding out the price and charging the order, they actually gave the items to the guest for free. In this case, 4 cartons of eggs. Again, all trainable, teachable, coachable moments, but in the height of the pandemic, these errors were being made at a much higher rate than we would like to accept. Moving on to self-check, again, as the stores were really being pushed with business, every register open, every host engaged, we found loss after loss where the guest would wait. The time that they were waiting would seem excessive, so they would assume that, well, I haven't got my receipt and everything doesn't seem to have finalized. Maybe their zip code didn't go in, or maybe there was a problem with their debit or credit card. The self-checkout light was going off. It was signaling to that host, but we found that that lack of host engagement, properly manning self-checkout, order upon order, unfortunately, that was able to leave our store and not be paid for. And then the next guest comes in line. They can't get the self-checkout to work. We finally get a management member or attendant to the register, only to find out that that guest had walked out. Again, very real issues that plagued our business, and issues that I wanted to share today. Another issue that we found was around not on files, and it'll be the last real subject that I discuss. Not on files, always an issue, always check, always part of our opportunities with our data analytics, something that we look at regularly. But again, from a training perspective, what you see here is a young person walk up to self-checkout with 3 items. The last item doesn't scan, unfortunately. You have a guest service leader that comes around the corner at a distance, flashes their badge, and turns and walks away. And the item was then given to the guest for free. Again, incurring a $6 loss, but it showed the fact that we had people that were being asked to man a self-checkout department, maybe, that had not been given the type of training that they needed to be given to be stepped into that position. And, you know, now, and I'll throw a caveat out here, folks. We have a terrific training department, and like many retailers, training is a huge opportunity for us to always seek to train our people to be the very best they can be. And we ask a lot, certainly, of our host. But when you're bringing in well over 3,000 hosts, the business had just, like I said, doubled. I don't want to make it sound like that we were a total train wreck. We were not. But this was a very real, very different, Adam called it a black swan. It was a black cloud for a few weeks, and we stopped doing a lot of things that we normally did because we didn't have the manpower or the ability to continue to do it, whether it was audit or particular types of training. So really eye-opening for us, all of us in our business. And to talk just a little bit more about those not on files, you'll see that count went up 26,000. I put all these numbers in a by location because you may have 10 stores. If you're listening on this call, you may have 1,000. That is a 63% increase. And one of the things I'll call out is as the restaurant business dried up and the supermarkets were blowing through inventory, many government agencies lifted restrictions on being able to sell restaurant product in a supermarket. We were buying all of this product we could find. We were buying it from Cisco Foods, U.S. Food Service. If we could find product, we were buying it to stock our stores with. This is restaurant grade product. It doesn't have UPCs. It doesn't have ingredient labels, but the government said, we're okay with you selling it. So we were having to price this with very non-traditional means. It was not scanning through the register. Much of this product didn't even have, as I said, scan bars. So when you look at the amount of outsourced product we were buying, it created a huge increase in items that the host was having to try to figure out how to handle this if that price tag had fallen off. It was for us like going back 20 years in time before electronic scanners and when we had to price everything. And it, again, was a big change to our business. And how so? Well, you'll see right here, guys, two instances of many where the item didn't scan. It was a different item for us. And in both of these cases, the cashier told the guest, well, we have a scan guarantee. If it doesn't scan, you get it for free. And they gave these items away. And we have a scan accuracy guarantee, but if an item doesn't scan, we go get the price. and we can key it in. Again, we've been able to write opportunities through Zebra Analytics to now point to these areas. And if there is an activity at the register now where a cashier scans an item not on file and we subsequently don't see a hand-keyed item, something being keyed in, then we get an opportunity out of our analytics, which is very, very helpful for us fixing this very quickly with our training. To see what that cost is, we believe that before COVID, that our average store loses about $2,500 a year to mishandling of not on files. Based on the data that we got with our analytics through the 11 weeks, we believe that number has increased about 48%, about $1,200 a store. Again, that led us to write some new opportunities. It led us through our data to really dial in and put some new practices in place that we think will help to address this. So in closing, these were the areas of concern that our analytics showed us during those 11 weeks. And again, just dozens and dozens of opportunities that Tony and Carrie discovered. And we've been working back through operations, through our front end host and supervisors, through our training and training departments and communication to fix those. Self-checkout, both transactions being voided off and just the accuracy and manning of those stations and those hosts being trained well to do their job. Our e-commerce business, non-permitted alcohol sales, avoided transactions, how we handle guest satisfaction, who can do that. Are we taking the time to do it accurately? And then, of course, we've revisited both our substitution and refund policies. And then lastly, not on files, the proper handling of not on files, especially as it relates to our food service product, which we're still using today. So these changes, as I shared with the Zebra team several weeks ago before we even got to this part of the webinar, I had been working on this, thankfully, with Tony and Carrie, that again did a masterful job pulling this data together. And I was excited to show Adam and his team what we had learned. And again, it is nothing new. It is more of the same, but we definitely saw areas of our business challenge that made us challenge all things communication, training, what's important and how we address it. So I hope that those of you on the call found this information useful, whether you're in supermarket retail or just retail in general, and that you can maybe find some new ways to go back and dig into your analytics and hopefully help improve your business. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Adam with a big thank you.
Thanks, Terry. This was a really terrific presentation. I thought you did a great job. Before we start our Q&A, I want to remind our audience that this webinar has been recorded and will be available on demand in the next day or two. Terry, the first question we have is, you mentioned your sales via fuel went down, but was that a transaction decrease or value decrease as fuel costs plummeted?
It was both. I mean, we saw the use of fuel. I mean, as people were ordered to stay at home, our fuel business, both gallons and, of course, the price went down substantially as well. We saw that from both ends of the business.
Okay, you also mentioned suspension of refunds for a period of time. Was that for all products, and for how long were they suspended?
We put the suspensions on those probably about week 3 when we started seeing massive hoarding in paper and cleaning products. We would, if a guest came in with an item that was off quality, bad produce, or they got a steak that they didn't feel was, we were absolutely handling those refunds. But guests that were coming in with 3 cases of cleaning materials, we were telling them, that we were no longer doing refunds for those type of items.
Okay, another question. When you see some of these errors being made, do you have any criteria to differentiate honest mistakes from potential fraud?
Well, no more than what the average AP guy does. I mean, my asset protection team uses Zebra Analytics every day to find fraud and to find those cashiers that are they're trying to skim the system, take money and or defraud, give away groceries. And we certainly fight all of those things every day in all of the traditional methods. These things, when we looked into what changed during the pandemic, why did these particular KPIs seem to go so far out of line, so far from the normal? And we kept coming back to new host or host making bad decisions or host trying to help a guest. And again, very few times were we able to tie it back to fraud. It was most often just, I didn't handle that right, or we were, handling more training or better training. We just found that in most of these issues that I covered today, it really was new host training and communication and poor decision making. And then oftentimes lack of leadership, a guest service manager or a guest service leader who didn't want to get too close into that 6-foot zone. And rather than asking the right question, Adam, they made a decision to scan a badge without asking. And it cost the company money ultimately.
Great. So,
yeah, and just want to add one thing to that, Jack.
Okay.
I think a big part of that also is the ability to identify and eliminate false positives. And, one of the things that Terry's team did really well is layering on various elements of logic, if you will, that would take those things out so that when they would identify stuff, because you can imagine with such a massive change in the business and all these things going off, almost like everything seemed like it was red at one point. The ability to focus in on the things that mattered and the things that needed to be addressed were critical. And they were really excellent at doing that. If you don't mind, Jack, I'd like to ask Terry a question as well. Right now we're seeing a change. Some would like to call it a surge, but there's a possibility that we might change how we do business. Knowing what you know now, having gone through this, what would you do and how would you prepare if we were to have this event happen to us again, even this year?
And Jack's a great question. And, we talk about that, internally. And I think it would focus mostly around training and communication. And I think my company did a masterful job. We were having 2-a-day, 1-a-day meetings and really communicating just every day, multiple times a day to our host about host safety and so many things that were important during this. So I don't want to make it seem like that we didn't do the right things. We did. I think we have learned how we could enhance it. The slides that I didn't share with this group are our action steps that we're taking to improve and to get better. And we'll use those should we go into a phase 2 or should this ever happen again. It's kind of like building your war chest. It's like having a hurricane plan. Every time the hurricane ends, you immediately reconvene and you talk about what would we do different if there's another hurricane, because there most likely is one coming sometime. And I think you have to look at your plan, this kind of plan, this pandemic plan, the same way. I think we now have to reconvene and go, boy, when the next one comes, let's not forget everything we learned. And let's record it now, let's talk about it now, and let's get that war plan in place.
Very good, Terry. We have a question about organized retail crime. Do you specifically in the HBAs, do you have a look at what it was like before and after the pandemic?
Yes, and I will tell you that we don't see any real change there. It was a major problem before, and we see it as being just a bigger problem now. As a matter of fact, a little of the chaos within the stores, the amount of business probably from what we can see made it easier. Like many companies, we suspended doing inventories during the pandemic because even the inventory companies weren't able to get their people on the road and get into stores with stay-at-home orders and such. I will tell you that I do not see organized crime as having been affected. Those folks didn't stay home. We still have those challenges.
So of all of the problems that you've mentioned, which one surprised you the most?
The one that probably surprised me the most was the alcohol. Knowing that our registers are set up to not allow a sale outside of allowable selling hours is a given. Realizing that hosts were shopping in the middle of the night, and then the next day when they finalized that they weren't adding those alcohol sales that were left off the order into the order before the guest was able to take it home was really, it was probably the most disappointing thing that I learned through this. And again, the host that picked that order at night was probably different than the host that settled that order the next day. And it was a huge miss on our part.
Okay. Adam, we have a question for you. This person says, my LP team uses a report-based solution, and our biggest problem is that when we find errors, they're no longer actionable. How quickly would we be able to resolve these problems with your solution?
Well, that's a great question. I think a big part of it comes down to data availability. Quite frankly, there's two main things that you need to understand when trying to create an element of real-time actionability. One is data provisioning. Do you have the infrastructure as a company to provide it? In a lot of cases, they do. A lot of the point-of-sale systems today are very capable of trickle feeding data throughout the day. But then it comes down to having the available labor to go and action it. And what's really nice is, in Terry's particular case, he has a couple of amazing analysts that are able to work on the larger projects. But in our particular case, the ability to have the system wait and anticipate an event that's going to happen is really what differentiates how folks are able to get towards that real-time activity. So if you have the ability to get that data in a closer to real-time nature, fantastic. But what's nice is the ability to create this concept of anticipation where you have a system that's able to sit there and wait and look for the event to happen that you want to catch. And when it does, capture it and then send it to the appropriate person who can then go and take care of it. And a big part of that, obviously, is having the available labor. As Terry knows, labor management is critical. You could identify a problem all day, but if you don't have anybody to take care of it, that's a challenge. But having a system that can anticipate it, having something that can spell out what it was looking for, tell you what to do about it, that's really where it changes. And that's where we've seen a lot of success with our customers that are in that, what I'll consider real-time nature.
And if I could add to that, Adam, also it's the focus of the company in general. I have a leadership team at Lowe's that very much buys into our analytics and how we use them. So opportunities are very important. And an opportunity for those not in the Zebra Analytics world is what is generated that Adam spoke about. When a store is generating an opportunity, it means that this particular event has happened. And anytime it happens, we want you to know about it immediately. And, we put reports out and our leadership will challenge stores and store managers to why would this opportunity have gone overdue or not handled? So they understand the critical nature of these things. They understand that our hosts are going to make mistakes. They're going to make, human errors. And then there's also going to be fraud. But if a store manager, a front end manager is not, addressing those in real time. And then Tony and through myself, then we try to address the more global issues, the things that we could change that's going to help all the stores. But Adam, I think your point on, I think it's delivering it real time and then having someone dedicated in the store to respond to it then.
Well, gentlemen, that's all the questions we have. Before we close, I thought I'd just give you, you, Terry, you, Adam, the opportunity to add anything else that has come to mind or not.
Well, I'll lead off. First of all, thanks, Jack. Thanks, Terry. We appreciate it. As you know, Terry, I've enjoyed actually this preparation for this webinar. I've learned a lot. It's been pretty exciting. This is the second in a series. The first webinar we did was with Rob LaCamari of Big Lots, and just how they were preparing their business and changing their business in light of what was happening. But one of the things when we started preparing for this webinar, Terry came out of the gate and he said, "I'm so thankful that I have data." And that's how the conversation began. And it's been very interesting. There was a life before C19. There's a life after C19. But one of the things that, Terry mentioned, which is you're very lucky in the sense that you have a management team that values the effort that you guys are doing and appreciates and understands how you can make an impact on the business. But what he did point out is that the expectations, the business might have changed, but the expectations remain the same. We still have to manage to get fraud down. We still have to find those bad actors. We still have to find where the process is broken. And the faster we find it, the faster we fix it, the better we'll be able to reap the benefit of what this black swan event, this change, this massive change that set their business on fire. The growth was amazing. They want to hold on to it, and they're using data to do that. And it was a very exciting beginning, and really appreciate the experience. And thank you so much.
And, I would just like to say, thanks to the Zebra team. I enjoy sharing and always trying to look at how we can better use the tools that we have as a company. And of course, the Zebra Analytics piece is a huge part of our AP team. I just want to throw a shout out. I hope Tony and Carrie are listening. They do an amazing job. I have a tremendous AP team at Lowe's. I'm very blessed and very much appreciate what they do. They make all of this possible, trust me. But for those on the line, just thanks for giving me the opportunity to share again. I think that's how we get better. We're all out here fighting some of the same issues, and asset protection is certainly something that crosses all lines of retail. So we'd love for you folks to reach out if you ever want to share some ideas. Certainly pick my brain, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas as well. And again, just thanks to the Zebra team for giving me a chance, and Guy and that whole group. It was really a lot of fun getting prepped for it, and very much I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Terry. Thanks, Adam and the Zebra team. Everybody did a great job. I just wanted to remind our attendees, Adam mentioned the Big Lots webinar that we hosted a couple of weeks ago. That along with this webinar are on demand on our website. So check out losspreventionmedia.com on our webinar page, and you'll see this webinar and all of our other webinars that we've had over the last several months. So with that, to all of our attendees, thank you for signing up and sitting in on this. We appreciate it very much, and everyone be safe, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.